Horton and I were talking about a book topic that I feel very strongly on. Now, I want to talk to you about why it's important to let some books breathe. Now, I call it breathing. I'm not talking about your books actually breathing in oxygen, or I'm not talking about a concern about having your books jammed on the shelf where they seem like they're suffocating each other. I'm not talking about that. Letting a book breathe is something entirely different, and maybe it's something that you're not even aware of. So I feel very strongly about this, and I want to make you aware of why maybe you should consider this sometimes, depending on your situation. So let's begin. The first thing why I like to let a book breathe is because I try to follow my gut, meaning when I buy a brand new book, let's say I'm excited to finally get another book by an author or another book in a series or what have you. Or is it better if I wait to continue until I get another book? Because I might want to take and binge that series. Or maybe I wait until the series of books is complete. And then I can sit down and just binge all the books, read them back to back. I don't have to wait for 6 months or a year or years to finally have the telling of a tale. I can sit down with all the books and just read them at my pace. That's beautiful. That way you can just enjoy them without having to wait. Let's be honest here. When you read a book, and if it's been a year since you've last read it, you will have forgotten a lot of details unless you've read that book multiple times. A second point for letting your books breathe would be to have a nice selection of what you can read. Let's say you bought a bunch of horror books and you've read all your horror books as soon as you buy them, and now all you have on your shelves are just read horror books. You have nothing that's unread, but you're craving for some new horror. You don't want to read anything else but that. But if you would have at least left one horror book unread, then you'd have that as a emergency read or a backup if you just are craving a horror book or whatever genre you want to read. So that's another reason why it might be good to let your books breathe a little bit when you acquire them. Let them sit on the shelf for some time. Let them breathe. I feel that this next reason why you should let your books breathe is probably the most important. Now, we all have favorite authors. Now, we take it for granted that we're going to always have more works to read from our favorite authors. We're going to have more books, more stories, more poetry, whatever it is that they write. We're going to have more to enjoy, right? Well, I've got a favorite deceased author and I have a favorite living author. For those people that have a favorite deceased author, you pretty much know what their body of work consists of. So if you haven't read everything by that author, well, you can ration it off and just savor it and try to slowly, or if you just want to dive in and devour everything that they created because you just want to binge on their works, then great, do that. But for me, for a living author, I think it's really important to acquire a new book and give it some time. Let it breathe because you never know. That may be the very last book that you're going to be able to read by that author. Now, they may not pass, but they may retire. There may be just any number of reasons why that will be the last book that you'll get to read by that author. So maybe it's a good idea. Maybe when you get your next book by your favorite living author, put that on the shelf and wait to read that book or read the next release and have that in reserve because that's something to look forward to if they put out no more books, you could always have that as your last adventure with that author. Now, I did that with Ray Bradbury. It's a Subterranean Press. They put out this nice, complete Martian Chronicles. Now, it has some of the unpublished Martian stories in there, and I saved one of the stories that I have not read. So I look forward to that. One day, I will read that story that I have not read yet, and I will experience that. Just like this book right here, this I have not read yet. And I'm a Bradbury fan. I am a Bradburian. So by all means, I should have devoured this. This is from Gauntlet Press. They put out a lot of Ray Bradbury editions of previously unpublished content, which I appreciate because I'm a huge Bradbury fan, but I didn't read this yet. This is a book of scripts. You've got, well, it's one is a script for a movie, another is for a play, and another is for a musical. So you get to experience all the variations of Fahrenheit 451 in those three forms. And this was all previously unpublished, and I have not read this. You know why I'm not going to read it? I'm going to wait, because I think there's going to be a collection of previously unpublished stories coming out eventually. And then I'll decide if I'm going to read that or if I'm going to read those stories first. Or maybe I read that and then I read the story that I haven't read in the Martian Chronicles, and then I'll save a couple stories in that new edition that comes out. But this way I have something to look forward to. So these are some good reasons why it's a good idea to maybe let your books breathe a little bit. There's also another author, name is Joseph Delaney. He was a school teacher that started writing in his spare time, and he finally got published. He wrote some amazing stories, a large series of books. Now, in the U.S., they're called The Last Apprentice, and it consists of a whole bunch of books. And when I was reading those, I eventually stopped in the middle, and then I just stopped reading them, and I waited to collect all the editions until the end of the series. And then I just read the entire series of books from the beginning to the end, all at once. And that was an amazing experience, but I had to wait. I had to wait a lot of years to get those. And because I had ordered 3 books from him, because he is no longer with us, because I did not read the Arena 13 books, I have something to look forward to. So now I can eventually devour those in the future when I need a Joseph Delaney pick-me-up, because there's nothing else that I have to look forward to that's new. I can reread those other books that I have read written by him, but I have 3 new ones to enjoy. And I recommend Joseph Delaney. These were considered young adult, or I believe the term is middle grade, somewhere amongst those lines. Apparently, they're intended for 10 years and up for the age. But if it's a good book, anybody should be able to enjoy it. Children, adults, depending on the content, of course. But I'm thankful I put those 3 books aside. So those are pretty much the reasons why I would prefer to let books breathe, depending on the situation and who I'm going to read. I would rather have something to look forward to by not devouring everything right away. Even Tyler Jones, as a Patreon member, I have one of his chapbooks here. and I have not read this. I'm putting this off to the side. I'm going to read this when the time is right. So I will savor that later. I'm hopeful there's going to be a lot more content, but again, as a Jonesian, I would prefer to have another shelf full of books by him. But I have the House of the Horse to read whenever I need a pick-me-up or whenever I get the next new edition that I have not read. Then maybe I'll read that chapbook and then I'll have the other book on hold until I get the following book or the following collection of stories. Depends on what I feel like.